Craig. It's so nice to have you.
Janelle, thank you for having me.
Oh, I'm
Great
super
to meet
excited for
you.
our conversation after reading your
Yes,
book and everything.
thank you. Yeah, hope you enjoyed it.
It's good. And I mean, you just put out your book. Did you say November, October,
Um,
January?
no, actually, I think the official was early December.
Wow. What a great way to end the year.
That was pretty cool. Nothing ever happened until I started being invited on like shows like yours and others, but it's been started getting there. And then the first of the year was exciting.
It's really quick, no?
And you know what's interesting? It is, but and I was surprised by it as well, but it was all there. I have 22 plus years of serving others in Christ Center Recovery Ministry. So I had my experiences, I had what I've observed and had the privilege of being around so many other people, and the principles kind of flowed. It was there. The title Stop Hiding, Start Healing is the natural because I used to do it. And I see so many really good people do it, hide instead of heal. And that's what prompted me to title that. And I just pray it's a resource for people that are dealing with any life issue.
We're all hiding from something, that's for sure. We're all wearing masks, literally and
Right.
figuratively. And the hiding and the shame never really stops.
No, especially the shame,
The shame, the guilt, the hiding, and
especially,
secrets.
yes, especially the shame.
Mm.
Yeah. Very, very. Oh, gosh. Yeah, I see that. I experienced it myself years ago. It comes from the pit of hell. There's nothing good
Mm.
about it. And it's just, when someone is in bondage to it based on their past or their, experiences, what have you, it's one of the harder ones to get rid of, truly. But the good news is that that mold, whatever has you, can be cracked and just broken. And you can live a life of wholeness and freedom.
I think what a lot of people forget about shame is such a buzzword that we throw around, but shame is the difference between I failed and I am a failure. It's really
Oh,
linking the I am that now. That's where the shame comes around and that leads to
yes.
a life of destruction pretty quick.
It does. It is one of the catalysts for forming a very unhealthy identity. You're right. We take it on as I am. I have it, but I am failure. Yeah, I've experienced that and I see others that have as well. But the good news is you find that path and you find the safe and trusted resources and people can be able to heal.
I know, as we mentioned in your bio, a lot of your work is helping people recover through Christ and recovering of years and years and years of addiction and pain
Yes.
and suffering. But I got to ask you, like, once you recover and overcome something, that it doesn't mean we never will again. So, is there anything that you're struggling with currently or still hiding from?
Let me find my list.
I
Uh,
think people forget that people who have overcome something
yeah.
recently doesn't
Yeah.
mean that never have hardship again in their life.
Well, we're all guilty of looking out and looking at others and thinking, oh, they got it all together and this,
Mhm.
that. I've yet to find anybody that has it all together.
The
If
people
there is,
who look the most together are the ones that are very quickly falling apart
well, we'll
inside.
talk about that. Yeah.
Yes, you know
We'll
lots
talk
of
about
those
that.
people.
Yeah. Yeah. But what am I struggling? Well, you're absolutely right in that I've been to a very dark pit of hell experience in my drug use years ago. So I've worked for the last 36 years in healing and restoration and striving for wholeness, right? But I've still had to overcome many obstacles. And I looked at four categories in our life: mentally, emotionally, physically, and spiritually. And all four of those areas, all of us are dealing with in some way, shape, or form, right? And at some time throughout life, going to be rocked. I mean, we just are. We're going to be hit with something. But it's my past experience, right? And what I was able to overcome and how I was able to overcome it and work it has helped me greatly in this day and age. So if something presents itself, and I've had a lot present itself, instead of my old self, I'd look at it and go, boom, I'm out. Right?
Yeah,
I'd
you'd
ran.
run.
Now I've run through it. I just run through it
Mm.
and I don't do it alone. Struggling. It's funny you mentioned that. Debbie and I, my hot wife, and I were having a discussion this morning, actually, about the direction of book and other things. And
Right.
bless her heart, we've been together,
I
married.
is she
for-
asking, like, "What's the point of all of this?"
It's so funny. If I say something or my approach is bad, or we did one of those mini seasons, she'll go, and now she says, go read your book.
You're
Oh,
like, "You're so right."
okay. No, we were talking about the direction book and speaking engagements and the investment in that, other things. And bless her heart, she's awesome. I rely on her so much because she is so talented, outgoing as a businesswoman, and she has great advice. And you women were gifted with the intuition and just an amazing gift. So the struggle is I have to be, as a husband, far more sensitive to that gift, right? And it's I don't mind being told, and I want you to ask me the tough questions. She would say, "Well, I think you ought to do this." I'm like, "Yeah, I don't know about that." And, well, I was thinking this, and she's like, "Well, no, if we did that, then you wouldn't have to do any of that." I'm like, "Well, I enjoy." So anyway,
So
uh,
what I'm hearing from you, Craig, is you're struggling with not being right,
yeah, no,
having more opinions.
no, I welcome that, but I process stuff differently. I just do. It goes in and it has to bounce around a lot. It
Right.
really does before I get it. Like she laughs at me because she'll say something and then it may be like a half hour later. I go, gosh, it took you that. I mean, yeah, it does. So my struggle is about self-awareness. It truly is. And that is, I've got to be far more sensitive. I don't need to be right. It's accepting she'll see something that and I have blind spots, not only about the book or the direction or but and she sees things that I probably don't. That's why we've gotten along so well. So anyway, that's
I
what
mean, you guys have
I'm
a
getting
beautiful
better.
long marriage, so something's
Yeah,
working.
absolutely. Absolutely. Yeah. So I'm working on it. So that's one of
Yeah,
my immediate struggles. I just
yeah.
have to be far more sensitive to being open and accepting and hearing, listening.
I mean, I think we all struggle with that every single day.
Yeah. Yeah.
Especially well, we talked earlier, you and your wife are realtors by trade, and I work in real estate as well, and
Yes. Yes.
my god, some days it hurts to listen, and but that's how we make money, we gotta listen more than we talk, but it's a hard balance.
We have to be active listeners.
It's such
You
it's
know,
a skill.
you did well, it's a learned skill. It's a learned skill, and the ones that are able to do it well are very successful because
Yeah.
it's about the needs of the client. The people I serve in recovery ministry, it's about their need. It's not about me. They're not coming to see me. They're coming for help. They're crying out for help. So you have to be an active listener as to help them drill down on it and identify, all right, where do we start? What do we start with? So yeah.
And I'm sure you agree, what they say they want is never what they want.
Not all not yeah, that's not always the case. You're right. Not always the case.
Yeah.
It could be polar opposite of what they came in with, and that's the beautiful thing about life. Think you're
It's not
dealing
black and
with
white.
no, when you pull back the layers and what have you, all of a sudden you discover beautiful things about yourself that you've suppressed or you kept locked up, and all of a sudden it's unearthed because, you stop hiding. And then, wow, I did not realize that I get angry because of boom, or I'm triggered because of this, or I feel jealousy because it's just isn't life amazing? Learning,
Oh, I know.
come on, it's wonderful, tough
A
at
lot
times,
I find, and me especially, I don't give myself enough time to process why I'm feeling certain ways, you know?
yeah,
And instead I use that time to create tons of stories that aren't actually true. It's very
right.
productive.
Good stories though,
Oh,
good stories.
oh my
So,
god, I could
so
write books with these stories that I
yeah,
draw up in my head.
yeah, but see, you and I developed coping mechanisms and escape routes and other things when we were younger.
There and they
And
start
that
really young, hey?
and they yeah, we did. We did. Depending on one's home life. We were given one set of parents. Maybe you've had broken homes and had two sets of parents, or it is what it is. And we had to learn how to deal with pain, shame, guilt, betrayal, abandonment, and bless their hearts, many I've helped abuse, trauma, and you at a very young age, you're developing these coping mechanisms and what have you. And we tell ourselves stories. Oh, it's not all that bad. It's not as bad as I think it is. Or, oh, he doesn't drink as much as I think he, come on.
We're all
And it's
lying to
really about,
ourselves.
yeah, it's all about, let's put it on the table. Come on, let's call it like it is.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Well, let me ask
So
you this. Obviously, your entire story and the reason why you wrote a book is it's about many things you've overcome. What were and maybe still are some of your coping mechanisms for hiding?
isolation,
Mm. And how does that look in practice?
I don't want to tell you because then you'll know exactly when I start isolating right in front of your eyes. When
Like,
I get
how
really
did it look like when you were younger, especially, and how did it
oh,
keep progressing?
mother, and I was kind of like an only child because my sisters were 9 and 7 years older, and our dad was a minister. The
Which
whole
I
life,
have so many questions about.
yeah. Well, anyway, so our whole life was making him look good. That was our entire life. It was all centered around him. And my sisters were off in school, and I was essentially on my own. So I took the brunt for many years. Our dad was somewhat of a narcissist and also had his own demons. And he kind of took it out on us. What I saw in church was different than what I saw behind closed doors at home. And so that was my example of God, right? And I was just,
It's all
oh,
for show.
yeah, yeah. I was like, but no, he did a lot of good work. I'll hand, and I love the guy. We never really had a real close, nurturing, meaningful, loving father-son relationship. And I longed for that, which is why I searched and I decided to go off on one of the dumbest paths I've ever been on, but it's the catalyst for everything I am today. When I get really out of balance, if I've had too much people in my life or too much to a certain degree, I can do it in an unhealthy way and I won't be engaged in many of the important things I should be doing. I'm not saying I've dealt with depression as well, but I'm not saying I get in this real low, dark place. I just get in a place where I'm like, time out, and I get energy being alone. I just do. I don't get energy in big crowds. I just don't. So, and I'm very involved in a lot of different things. So I have to be mindful of that. I really do. And so that is probably my biggest weakness that I have to work on a regular basis. Yep.
I wanna talk more about being a preacher's son growing up. That's a lot of pressure.
It is. And it was too much for my sisters and I. We all agreed and we kind of brought ourselves up
Yeah,
because our parents really weren't involved in our lives, our interests, our gifts, our skill. I was a really good athlete.
yeah.
I should have played college basketball when I graduated from high school. I had no direction, no self control, no self discipline, no purpose, really, no mission. I was kind of there. And all my other friends were very good students. They're going to Tufts and Duke and Brown and all these Ivy League
Felt
schools.
a
And
bit like an
so
outsider?
playing basketball. Yeah, I did. I
Mm,
did. Growing up in that environment, I loved the church. Don't get me
yeah.
wrong. I
That was a
loved
question I had for you, like, I'm so surprised you went in the direction that you did being a preacher's son, but then you eventually came back to the church anyway. So were you involved in the church growing up?
well, our whole life.
Like, you
So,
had to be, kind of, but not by
yeah.
your
Oh,
choice?
yeah. Not that I can't wait to go to Sunday school or
Yeah,
whatever. You're going, get your clothes on and get in the car,
and shut
and
up when we're
like
there.
make me look good. But all the old women loved me. I was a preacher's son, and I
Of
was this little
course.
blonde towhead kid running around. Oh man,
Cute.
that's why I get these dimples and grab me, grab my cheeks, give me a quarter. And so what it did though, it nurtured a deep appreciation for older adults.
Right.
Even to this day, I have a real soft spot for the elderly. But none of us do at a very young age where we think our family's perfect. Mom, dad, but they had their own demons and their own struggles and stuff. And a lot of that we inherited,
And I'm sure it was a lot of pressure on your
you
mom
know?
as well.
Uh, but I wasn't getting really a disciple or develop a relationship with God of it, but the seeds were planted. But everything we were about was, and my mom was typical enabler. She was just, oh, you're going to make dad look good and this and that. We are the family, Father Brown's family, and everything we do, everywhere we go, and this is what we represent. And it's just on the back end, looking back, of course, you realize that wasn't really that healthy. I didn't I didn't feel that good about myself then. I wasn't able to develop my own identity then.
Exactly. They don't care about your individual achievements or where you're going. It was more of a family unit.
Yeah, it was. And that's too bad. That was really, but it is what it is. And I can't live my life on regret or what it could have been or this. Yeah, sure. I've always looked back and evaluated about certain paths, opportunities, and things like that. But yeah, I think we make a big mistake because I tell people don't look for me in my past because I don't live there anymore. That's not it. It has everything to do how it shaped me for today, which I'm very grateful for. It was not easy. It wasn't a lot of fun. I ended up in the pit of hell, drug use, and I can to this day. I There was a long period that I struggled with all that, but then I was set free from it.
I want you to describe for the audience because you and I have spoke about it, and it was, like, the first thing that piqued my interest in talking to you, but tell people what you mean and describe your past pit of hell to people and kind of what your life looked like in your late teens and early 20s.
Well, in high school, I just took, you go to parties, you're drinking, you're not overdoing it, but
I
you're
was hosting them, so yes, I know.
oh, that was you.
They were
I
at
I
my
don't think
house.
hey, I don't think we made it there. We tried that night, but, um, no, yeah. Why do people drink? Why do people do drugs? Why do people get into pornography and all that? Well, generally, it's you wanna fit in, and I didn't have enough self-control, self-discipline because it certainly wasn't developed by my mentor, my dad, because he never had one of those sit-down talks and said, "Hey, I needed a leader, a mentor in my life." I was just looking. I was trying to find someone to help direct me, and it was kinda on my own. It's very hard to develop your emotional, mental, physical, and spiritual conditions. So in high school, it was about the party, and I could not wait to get out of the house, move out, go to college, and just get away from it all. But I went to the party instead of going to class, and I dropped out. So I came back to Washington, D.C., and I worked a number of different jobs. And here I am, I'm 19, 20 years old. And I took a job at this restaurant and bar in Washington, D.C. that happened to be owned by the biggest cocaine dealer on the East Coast. Okay.
Restaurants are usually
Uh,
a front for it all.
Full of it.
Yeah.
Everybody had it back in the 80s. Everybody had it. And I had no direction. I had no self discipline. I was 19, 20 years old, enamored by that whole lifestyle because I was searching.
You
I
were
had to fit
searching
in.
for a mentor, someone to lead the way.
I had to fit in somewhere,
Yeah.
and I did. And so I got sucked up into that drug world, using drugs and alcohol and everything associated with it. And I just got deeper and deeper and deeper into a very, very dark place.
And obviously, if you're selling, you're also using. It's rare if you're
Yeah.
selling and not
Well,
using.
I did some low level stuff, but this guy, the main guy, was just a major player on the East Coast, from Florida all the way up.
Wow.
And so we were in the midst of it. Not We weren't hands on a regular basis, but he ran everything out of this place. And so we had people, the who's who of all over Washington, D.C., including Capitol Hill, Congress,
Or
TV people, music people, and yeah, so
it's
you're
always high profile people that are mainly involved in this, especially.
and middle class dropouts like me. I
Yeah.
mean, it's every area of life, every economic, every demographic, aside from certainly really young ones. But it's just horrific. So I'm in the midst of all this, and it's my own decision. You know,
Did you feel like it was the pit of hell when you were in it or upon reflection afterwards?
oh
So
oh,
you
I,
knew while it was happening, you're like, "I
yeah,
don't know what
I
the
was
hell I'm doing with my
miserable.
life. Like, this is bad."
Well,
Yeah.
I was miserable.
Yeah.
Janelle, it was horrible.
Where are your parents? Like, you're still a preacher's son. Does he not know what's going on?
It's a great question. No, you know why?
Because you hid it
Because
well.
I hit it well. Yeah. Oh boy. Yeah.
How? How do you hide? Like, at this point in time, are you
You
addicted to drugs?
isolate, you're hanging out with a whole different crowd, you know,
Yeah.
and it's unhealthy. There's major codependency. There are relationships that are artificial and
Financial codependency too?
big time. Yeah. You're looking for the next gram of Coke, looking, trying to buy this and that and use, and you're up for days at a time. Sometimes the sun's coming up and you're leaving the establishment. Depressing, absolutely depressing. But here's the deal. When you're in the midst of your struggle, you take on that identity. And even though it's painful, shame, failure, that's your comfort zone. Even though it's painful, that is what you know. And that's what I knew. But in the midst of it, I'm looking around thinking to myself, how in the world did I get,
It
you
happened
know,
so quickly though, because I
it
know when
does.
we talked before, the way you were describing it, I thought you were in it for years, but you were kind of in and out in a short period, but so much can happen in that short period of time.
Well, it was about 5 or 6 years or so. Is disgusting, to be honest with
Yeah.
you. And I know people that have been, in the midst of that darkness for 10, 20, 30, 40 years, all their life.
It's like anything, if that's all you know, it's you don't know any other options, you don't know how to get the hell out.
Well, I know how to,
Well, you did
well,
find out.
it's the first chapter in my book. Pain
Exactly.
is greater than your fear. When the pain in our life, no matter what you're dealing with, in business, in marriage, in relationships, financially, dealing with addiction, when the pain is greater than your fear of changing, oh, you're ready to change.
Mm.
Absolutely.
So how
And
did that look for you? What was the
that's
pain?
where I, that's where I had to get to. Two experiences.
Mhm.
My first epiphany was about 5, 6 years in. It was July 15th, 1985. And I just had this. I was coming back from the beaches on the East Coast here. And I just had this epiphany. It was like, I'm either going to die or I'm just going to continue on this life of destruction and
Mhm.
make nothing of my life. Right. And that was startling to me, startling. It shook me. And here's the part that we don't get from a spiritual
Mm.
standpoint is that God loves us so much that his hand is on us at all times. He's
Yeah.
always nearby. And I thought I was having this own experience by myself. Looking back, I realized that was one of the defining moments in my coming out of hiding. So
Mm.
what I did was after that, I made a concerted effort to get out of that lifestyle. And I didn't go to rehab or anything else. I was determined. I had this determination to get out of that. And I did. And over the weeks and months and years later, I extricated myself from that entire lifestyle. And it's been 36 years
But
without it.
I've heard of horror stories of when someone's trying to leave that lifestyle, like, it's almost who you surround yourself aren't allowing you to leave.
There is that because of the influences, because of the codependency, be-
Finance hurdles, yeah.
yeah, everything. Yeah, absolutely.
How
Sure.
do you
There's a
leave
lot of,
that money? Obviously, you're making a lot of money.
well, the main guy was making a lot of money. We were employees of business that he owned, and we were caught in the midst of all that. But I wasn't necessarily, I knew I could go find another job. I knew I
Okay.
could get out of that industry. I knew I could go do that. So I wasn't solely dependent on drug sales. I was dependent on employment, but also leaving that lifestyle and leaving all that because of the allure. That allure is artificial. It's all dark. There's nothing of value, nothing. And there's some really good people. I mean, I still communicate with some of my dear friends, but not for me anymore. It was not going to happen to me.
Were you
And
ever scared of what would happen if you left? When you think about the
oh,
codependency? Okay.
oh yeah, the fear. Yeah, absolutely. But I was kind of on my own. I was kind of,
Yeah.
because all my buddies, from high school were often at some really good schools, and they're now attorneys and financial
Mhm.
guys in New York, and they're all various and I just felt like you mentioned, I'm man out. I was kind of like,
Yeah.
and I kind of was just on my own. So I just decided I'm just going to go work somewhere else. But I still associated with some of the people, but I was still miserable. I was clean for 6 years or so, but I was still absolutely miserable. So that experience on that day coming back to the beach was one. And then there were multiple, like experiences in between that. But the final breaking point when the pain was greater than my fear was when my sister called me and said, dad was dying in the hospital and we have to get to the hospital.
You were young at
And
this point.
I was mid 20s.
Yeah, that's really young.
Yeah. Mid or late. No, I was late 20s.
Mm.
Yeah. So I tried to get my life back together, but I was still miserable. I had no purpose, no mission, and I had never dealt with all the trauma. I'd never dealt with any of that stuff. And I just kind of hit some, kept it hit. But I'm standing next to my dad and he has hours to live, the doctor said, or he'll turn around, we'll be able to save him. But it shook me to the core. I mean, this guy, I said to myself, I'm standing in the intensive care unit looking at him, and my whole life came back in front of me. And I said to myself, I remember standing there in his room, and I was like, my dad's going to die, and I've done nothing of value with my life. And he's the one guy I've always wanted to tell me that he loves me or he's proud of me or that we could have a relationship together. And I'm not going to have that. That was my breaking point. That was my breaking point. And the very next day, I didn't know what to do. I just cried. I just cried out and I prayed this, that God come take over my life.
Mhm.
I said, I can't do this anymore. I said, take away my pain, help me heal, just take over my life. And it happened in an instant. I
Wow.
mean,
So you never ever went to rehab, you said, or anything? It just you went cold turkey on everything.
I did. But that experience that day after being in the hospital with my dad, that changed my life forever.
It scared you straight.
Burden, the burden was lifted completely. I mean, it was my whole life changed in that hour long prayer,
Wow.
changed forever. And that was the first day that I came out of hiding completely, totally and began my healing process. And that was about 28 years ago, actually. I've been clean 36, but been working on, my recovery. I've
And it's a daily practice, hey? Like, it doesn't
Yeah,
ever stop.
always, always. I immersed myself in it at the start because I couldn't get enough of the positive principles and the new direction of my life and purpose I had and all of that. It was all new. And my wife at the time, Debbie, was my girlfriend
Mhm.
at the time, and she was instrumental. And so it all began to align, but it was a rough road to get there. But it was my own doing.
Yeah.
You see, I blamed God, I blamed everybody else for my situation. How could you do this to me? Or why am I in this mess and blah? Well, Trey, hello. I finally was honest with myself and I was like, no one made you do that.
No.
Nobody. I did it on I made those poor decisions. And as a result, it led me to that and then freedom from that. And then, like I said today, everything I am today is a result of my deepest pain, everything I am today. And I look back on it. Do I look back on regret? No, no, I gave up all the regrets. I gave up all the bitterness. I gave up all the discouragement that I gave up all that. And I've processed that and I've been able to use that now in the last 22 years of helping, serving,
Mhm.
caring, loving other people that
Right,
have been
going
where
through the
that
same
I
things.
yeah, that have been where I've been.
I wanna get your thoughts. One of the things that you said in your book that I found very interesting, I agree to some extent, but I just found it very interesting is when you said, "Addiction is not a disease, it's a choice." I'd love
Yeah.
to hear your thoughts on that.
Yeah, it begins with a choice.
Mm,
Well, what happened, early on in the 1930s or 40s in Minnesota, disease began to enter into the discussion when it came to alcoholism, especially,
right.
and what have you. Disease kind of entered in, and people began to call it that. And it
Mm,
certainly helped government funding and other things later on over the years.
yeah.
And people would use that as a reason. Well, it's a disease. I'm a
I can't
victim.
do anything about it. They're almost looking
Yeah,
for an
it's a
excuse not to make
disease.
decisions.
Yeah, well, tell that to the cancer patient.
Mm,
They didn't choose it.
no.
You stuffed your life with cocaine and drugs and heroin, fentanyl, opioids, alcohol, pornography, food, sugar. Yeah.
It's a
I
daily
made a
choice.
choice.
Yeah.
I made a choice. It's totally. But here's my argument, and I shared a chapter. book, and it's a great, the author, I forget the author, but I shared a chapter about that, the biology of desire.
Yep.
See, I am one that believes it's more of a warped desire than it is a disease. Because here's the kicker: addiction works. Oh, it works, and it works well because it takes away, it medicates, it
It takes away
removes it.
all the pain,
It takes away everything. Yeah, we know, and the scariest part about it is we know exactly how we're going to feel when we go use
and we
whatever it
crave
is.
that.
Yeah, because and see, that's the argument. Well, your brain is diseased. Well, yeah, you've changed the whole makeup of your brain because of the euphoric feeling that you get when you use whatever it is you use, and therefore you've altered your brain. And that's where it comes to the, oh, well, that's a disease. Well, but that can be reversed. You
Yeah.
see, there that can be totally reversed and made well. So it's not permanent. If you keep picking up the drugs and you can't get off of it and you keep feeding that euphoria, well, yeah, you're going to continue to the synapses in your brain and you're just going to keep feeding it. Yeah.
But with the
So
people that you work with, how because they still want to serve that craving or the euphoria, so do we just sub it out for something else, or do we teach our brains to not need that?
you totally pivot and begin to rework your desire.
Mm,
You see, from a spiritual standpoint, it's, do I please myself over and over and over and continue to do that? Or do I please God with
mm.
how I am living my life?
And for
But here's the
someone who is
problem.
not as religious and wouldn't use God in their word, how do you translate that to someone?
Well, I'm involved with a colleague of mine, Dr. Omhow, here locally in a team, and we're putting together a company and a program. And it involves, I don't know if you've heard of the Sinclair method.
No,
It's
what is it?
using medication. Naltrexone is one drug to take away the desire. You take the medication when you're going to drink and whatever, and it's like a progressive process that totally removes the desire for that alcohol or
Is that
pornography.
safe?
Well, yes. Oh, very. Oh, it's been proven. You don't hear about it. You
Yeah.
don't hear about it. It's been around for a long time. Dr.
Mhm.
Sinclair was a pioneer in this process. But my colleague, Dr. Umhout, he's been doing this for 5 years with people. It's just
Interesting.
remarkable. Has a 78% success rate for people that drink. And the same medication can target people that are struggling with pornography and also opioids. Yeah, same target. So that is where science and the spiritual track are totally parallel with one another and very successful. Now you ask me, if you give that up, what do you fill it with? That's a great question.
Mhm.
That's a really good question. And I'm not one of the ones that, are like, oh no, you got to be sober, you got to be abstinent, you
Well,
can't
that's
even
what I
do
was
this.
gonna ask, like, can people use
No,
all these things in a healthy
sure.
way,
That
in
what
moderation?
well, some do. Oh
Yeah.
yeah. Oh, some do all the time. Yeah. And that, as long as they're
Is the destructive part the addiction to it, I guess? Like,
yeah,
you're not
when it
choosing it
becomes, well, there's a big difference between needing it and wanting.
right.
Yeah. Big difference. And that's up to your own emotional,
Mhm.
physical, mental approach to whatever the substance is. The thing about addiction is it does. It begins with a choice.
Yeah.
And we get so deep into it, we can't make a choice not to use it anymore. And that's where wonderful programs and Christ Center programs, secular programs, and my friend Dr. Omhow, what he has put together are working for many people. But I never saw myself as being diseased. People can say, well, how can you say that? Well, I am one.
Yeah.
Yeah,
You can decide whatever you want to
yeah.
label yourself as.
And the other part is this, you'll never ever hear me call anybody an addict
You don't use
or
that
an
word.
alcoholic, and never, absolutely,
It's
because it
so
goes
it's
back,
so derogatory and shameful.
well, so why would I call myself that?
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, now there is a segment of our society that thinks it's really cool. "Hey, man, I'm in recovery. Hey, yeah, man, I've been an addict for" okay, that's cool, that's your thing, but I've just seen it from another standpoint, having been one, that I would never call myself that. I never called myself an alcoholic. I
Mm,
never called myself any label other than Craig, and I happen to struggle with these issues.
mm,
And then God took over, and I'm Craig. I'm a believer in God, and
mhm.
I happen to have these issues that I am struggling with. You see, there's a big difference versus standing up,
Well, it's what we
labeling
talked about
ourselves.
earlier. It's having that and being it.
Exactly. Yeah. And you have that addiction. You're not the addiction. That
Mhm.
happens to be an issue that you really have to get under control and find the right resources to get help,
Mm,
right? So I am really big about identity and using that identity and changing that identity.
mm,
And I just am. There's such stigma, negativity, and it feeds that victim disease
yeah.
model,
I
right?
mean I
And
mean,
it could,
that's probably the ultimate addiction in this situation.
yeah, I just think it underpins that, oh, woe is me,
Yeah.
but that's why the argument is, well, but you made a choice. Your addiction began with a choice. And I
Of your
have had that.
circumstances is
Yeah,
like you created
yeah,
that.
yeah. And then people will also have the argument of, well, you have no idea what my past was like or this or that. And I said, I get it. No, I totally empathize with you. I do. I did the same thing. But I just want to share what I've experienced in my own life and not labeling myself something other than this is my identity.
Mhm.
And it's about time that all of us identified with the fact that we all struggle with stuff. We all hide from things. We all have secrets. Life is not an easy road at times. We all have trouble in relationships, right? Experience financial issues. We have health issues. We have mental issues. We have spiritual issues. I'm kind of loading it up here, but it's about time all of us realize that all of us are recovering from something.
Mhm.
All of us struggle with things and all of us hide these things. So it's no wonder the struggle continues because we won't come out of hiding to start healing.
I thought one of the parts of your book that I read where you said church is one of the best places to hide.
Perfect.
Damn, I resonated with that.
Perfect. Oh, it is.
Well, and to be honest, that's one of the reasons why I don't participate in the church because I always felt that entire building was nothing but a bunch of hypocrites. I seriously. I'm like, you guys are the worst of the worst. Like, you're not walking anything what you're preaching here.
It's fine.
It
Yes.
but th and mind you, I'm just talking about the building that I was part of.
Well, yeah, I've been around a while and I will say that there is truth to that for sure. Churches are full of broken people.
Yeah.
There's a yearning in their heart somewhere of some kind for something new
Mhm.
and for some change, something. The church was created to do great things to hurt people. But you're right. Every church has its own personality. That depends on the pastor. It depends
Yeah.
on what is being preached. Depends on the atmosphere. It depends on a lot of different things. But if God is present and they're honoring Him, right, in the appropriate way, based on His word, which is it's not overly difficult. Get over this, overcome that, heal from this, be able to do this, marriage, family, children, financially, all the principles are there. And so if churches get away from that, well, yeah, a little bit. But the reason I say that is because it is a great place to hide. Because depending on your church size and your congregation or whatever, it's a place where you go, and that's where we oftentimes wear the mask because of shame. We don't want to tell anybody, especially in church, that our life is the absolute mess.
Well, we go to church for the hour and a half, we leave, pat ourselves on the back, and just go back to normal.
We do. Well,
My family did it all the time.
whatever you call normal.
I'll tell you a story, Craig, and this is why I put my foot down at probably 12 or 13 years old and said, "No more church," and I kicked up a fuss every Sunday until my parents just kinda gave up, and my mom's gonna hate that I'm telling the story. But I remember we would get in a fight every single Sunday on the way to church, and Mind you, I was such a brat growing up, and I still have a lot of
No,
qualities of
come on,
no,
come on.
I was. Ask anyone.
Okay, okay.
I think it's the nature of being an only child that I got away with a little too much.
Wow. Okay.
And anyway, so I used to kick up a fuss. I hate it, whatever my mom wanted me to wear, some dress. I still don't really like wearing dresses to this day. And I remember we would be fighting right until getting into the car, and we would be fighting on the car ride there. And then the moment we stepped out into the parking lot and closed the doors, the fighting would stop. We'd put on our happy faces and listen to the church and whatever they said, pay our dues, pay our money in the collection thing, and then we'd leave, and the moment the car door shut again, the fighting would start. And I'm like, I almost enjoyed church. I'm like, everyone will shut up for an hour and a half. But I used to remember getting home and whatever fight we stopped, we began again. I was like, what the hell was the point of us going there? And so at 12 and 13 years old,
Really?
I said, we're all hypocrites. Like, I'm not going anymore. And that stopped our church going.
Really?
Yeah.
Wow. What you've described happens over and over again.
And I think
I mean,
that's
you
why a
can
lot
real
of people run away from the church and they don't resonate with it anymore.
unless the church is doing what it's supposed to do.
Yeah.
If the church was doing what it was supposed to do overall,
Mhm.
you wouldn't need Bible colleges. You wouldn't need any, the
Mhm.
church is supposed to disciple people. God's word, the gospel is meant to change hearts, change relationships, to help change minds, take
Mhm.
away the negativity, the bondages, the shame, and all of that, and bring hope, bring grace, bring mercy, all of that. So what you describe happens all across the world. It does. And
I felt like church was failing us. I don't know.
well,
Or we weren't listening hard enough.
yeah, I think it's a dual. Yeah, it's a dual. And your parents, bless their hearts. I
Oh,
mean,
they're amazing.
yeah, for whatever reason or what, you have to enter in environment with an open heart and a yearning to change and a desire to change. Every time I go, my prayer is that I'll be different when I walk out.
Right.
And that's up to me. That's up to the individual. And I can only speak about we've been in our church for 25 years. And our pastor, one of the best teachers and has such a heart to help people that it's just a large congregation. But why I shared that is that our church is fairly large
Mm.
and it's just too easy to sneak in and with your life in turmoil, wearing your mask. And you're right. You
Wearing
dress
your
up.
nice church
Yeah.
outfit, smile on your face.
Right. You go in and you shake hands with people and hey, what's up? And you have coffee.
Life is good.
You go to a class and it's not.
Yeah.
And it's not. If people would go in and reveal the hurt in their life, the struggle, the pain, and stop hiding it, their lives would just absolutely. Janelle, listen to me. Over the last 22 years, I've had hundreds of people come to me and say, I wish I had come here 5 years ago, 10
Well,
years ago,
one of your stories, a
20 years ago.
70-year-old man. He said, "I wish
Yeah.
I came 60 years ago," or revealed stuff
He,
60 years ago.
he struggled with a major issue for that long. And he said it was the first time as a 70-year-old, he felt he was in a safe place to be able to share the sensitive, delicate,
Mhm.
hurtful areas in his life. And then Janelle, that is what our world is missing.
I know. Why are we so scared to share and reveal?
Shame,
Yeah. What it
shame.
says about us.
What are they going to think about me? What are they going to say about me? How are they going to approach me now? Will I lose my job?
Mm.
Will I be ostracized? Will they bring condemnation? Will they bring judgment? That's a that's a lot.
There's too much at
Uh,
stake.
That's a lot. And I just empathize. I do because I was there, but I finally got on the other side. And it's real easy for one to say, "Oh, well, you just need to take your mask off, and the pain has to be greater than your fear,
Mhm.
and you will." But it's a lot, and that's what I share in the book, and I pray it's a resource for people to realize they
Yeah.
can do it. But it's also, Janelle, finding the right environment. You're not going to find it in the workplace.
Mm,
You're not going to find it at Starbucks. You're not going to find it at the shopping center or wherever and you may be able online. I would invite people to come to my site or my YouTube page or my Facebook page just for some encouragement and to reach out. But it's about finding the place where someone can go, like the 70-year-old man you mentioned,
mm,
where it's safe. We need safe places in our life. We need safe people. Safe people create safe
yeah.
places. And so you shouldn't just open up your heart, the delicate, sensitive areas of your life to just anybody. You
Mhm.
need to be mindful. You need to vet these people. You need to qualify people. And Janelle, that's what I've done for 22 years with our entire team.
Yep.
And I stress that more than anything, that we are going to do everything in our power to nurture a safe environment,
Mhm.
because never underestimate the shame and the courage it took of someone to walk through the door.
Right.
And we've had thousands of people walk through the door over the last 22 years. We're not perfect.
No.
No,
But
no,
it
by
it's an
no,
it's another resource, it's another door that will
yeah,
open.
absolutely. So they are out there. And I just think people are so inhibited by thinking that others are going to condemn them.
Mhm.
And especially I see that single moms, divorce, both men and women, it's just a heavy, heavy burden that people carry. And as you mentioned, your church experience, a lot of people have had not so good church experiences
Mhm.
where they view the church as the one place they don't want to go because their shame is so heavy that they will feel condemned. But that's not, God is about love. He's not about don't. It's about come to me,
Mhm.
because I have the power, the love, the grace, and mercy to change your life forever. Whatever you've experienced, wherever it was, let that go. But find this place over here where I reside and I will change your life forever.
Right.
And that's just what happened in my life. And I immersed myself in that. And it's unbelievable, the changes that have taken place and how that love and that, especially God's grace, when someone gets a hold of that,
Yeah.
their entire life is going to change. I understand people that have really tough religious or church experiences. I
Mhm.
get that. I get that.
It's
But
hard to
don't,
trust again and hard to
yes,
think it's gonna get better.
trust.
Mhm.
People trust their pain, shame, guilt, and addiction more than they do
Of course.
because it works.
They have more proof.
Big up. And that's the hurtful part of addiction,
Yeah.
really, or any life struggle. I trust that more than I do that person. I trust that more than I do that program. I trust that more than I do that church or that preacher, that pastor, that woman, that guy that treated me horribly.
Mm.
Listen, we all want to be accepted. We
We
all
have
want to be loved,
all humans want is acceptance and
acceptance,
connection.
and connection. And that's you just hit on it. I
Mhm.
should put that in a book.
Well,
Connection is
you kinda did around
family.
the pandemic,
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
how you said with people struggling with addictions, like, it got really bad during the
Horrible.
pandemic, if you wanna speak to
Horrible.
that,
Yeah. Well,
where
yeah.
there's no connection.
Because, yeah. See, I'm a firm believer that people heal heart to heart, face to face, and in circles, small
Yeah.
group. Yeah. Where you can sit across from other people that are struggling with the same thing you're struggling with. That's what it comes to stop hiding and start healing, is that when you find that trust, the group you can trust and the people you can trust that are safe, that's where you get that connection.
Right.
And what happens is when we're in our struggle, we're isolated and alone by our own doing,
Mm.
right? And you also have people that are out type A, sarcastic, and hiding behind all that, who are struggling in the same way, but they hide that.
Well, I wanna ask you about
We
that.
hide. Yeah, we hide out in the open.
I loved that, that's another part of your book that I really resonate with and can see in my immediate circles is the mask that we wear. So, in
Yeah.
terms of we hide behind being very strong, we hide behind being sarcastic, humorous, tough, and it's all such a facade, no?
Oh, total facade. Total facade.
I like the type of person that likes to control everything. They're hiding a lot.
Everything. Don't get me started.
No, I want to.
Yeah.
Tell
No,
me.
we all yeah. Well, that's why I'm on the show. All right. No, you're right. We all wanna try to control.
Yeah.
We wanna try to control our pain, our predicaments, our marriages, our relationships, our finances, our careers. And step one is stop playing God. Stop playing God.
The irony in that.
Yeah. Stop playing God and realize we are powerless in a lot of ways. Now, there are things we can't control: our attitude,
Yeah.
our approach, right? Our behaviors, if they're not clouded by other things, and which in turn help our circumstances, right? But the mask, we all wear it at certain times, at different places, what have you. And you're right. If you think about the person it's always about a joke and always about sarcasm, always about nothing can ever be
They're
serious.
afraid to connect, to be vulnerable,
Bingo.
hey?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Oh, I see it all the time. Yeah. It's, and it's like at some
When
point, I'm
you're on
like,
the other side and you're aware of it, when you see someone
yeah,
else doing it,
yeah.
it's so crystal clear of what they're going through. Like, it
Well,
happened to me recently where I'm like, everything you say is a joke and you're so just not dismissive, but, like, deflective.
well, they can't, honesty intimidates them. You know,
Yeah.
being honest and being open and being vulnerable and transparency. That's
So
out the
rare.
window, man. Oh, no. Yeah. And you want to be careful, but you don't want to be, you have to be pick and choose who you're going to be
Yeah, yeah.
vulnerable and transparent with. And that's where it comes to safe, trusted people. You're
Right.
not going to do that in an office place or wherever. And just some people do. Oh my gosh. Have you ever been in an office environment and someone just shares their
They're just
entire life story?
oversharers. That's a
And I'm
whole
sitting there,
other
and I'm
story.
like,
When I meet people who are oversharers, and mind you, like I share, I'm pretty outspoken, but I'm definitely not vulnerable in a lot of ways too. But when people overshare, I'm like, if they're this willing to share this, like what else are they keeping? Like everyone still hides something.
you might ask, what is left? All right. Good. I
Yeah.
mean, good. Right. Yeah.
I think they
But
like the shock value
people wanna, yeah, yeah, there's part of that.
and build connection in
And
that way.
they wanna control the narrative and the environment, and I'm just gonna share everything about myself right now, yeah, there's a motive there. What it is, who knows? We all wear different masks, and we have throughout our life, and I've always told 22 years, I've said, "Leave your mask at the door,
Mhm.
please. Leave it at the door. Just leave it there, drop it. I want a pile of them sitting over there before you even come in, just because we're real people dealing with real life issues."
Mhm.
And that's the environment we've tried to nurture over these many years where you can come in and just be you. And again, goes back to being accepted for who you are, loved unconditionally.
Mhm.
We're there to support you. We're there to help you and pray for you. We're there to be the second family, the new family that you've been looking for. That's what we all long for, where we want to belong, right? Where we're accepted for who we are, scars and all,
Yeah.
right? And you can only get there by taking the mask off, right? You can only heal by stop hiding behind the mask. That's the only way you're going to be able to do it.
The type of people that you serve, is there any kind of correlation between kind of what they've been through and kind of the catalyst that brings them to you?
Pain.
Mm,
2 out of 3 people come because of pain, not just addiction.
right. Just like
Pain.
a deep sadness or
Yes, absolute grief,
Mhm.
pain, everything on the list.
Do
Yeah.
you feel
Uh,
the reluctantness when they come in first?
oh, it's deer in headlights. It's like, oh my god. Yeah,
They're ready to run back out?
some people won't stay. They're not ready.
Do you
The
find
pain
some
is,
people will be there for a while before they ever reveal anything?
yes, absolutely.
They'll just soak it all in?
That's a beautiful. I've heard stories of people sitting in that small group environment for 6 months and didn't say a word. With us, you'll never be forced to share anything you don't
Right.
want to. Never. If you don't want to be called on in the group setting, you can pass.
That's good
Yeah.
because I find a lot of those groups, they feel like if you're gonna sit here and watch everyone else share, like, you have to as well, and
No,
that's good that
no,
you have a different approach.
no, absolutely not. No, we would never force that. And
Mhm.
we make it clear we're not here to fix you, change you. And there's only one that's able to do that, and that is our much higher power, greater than ourselves. No, you sit for as long as you want. It's not about we're checking your, we don't do breathalyzers. We don't do any of that coming in. It's like you come in just as you are. Now, Rarely do we have anybody that comes in completely intoxicated, we're just not that. I think
You don't
people realize
attract that?
we're not that environment. Yeah.
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 Even so, if you drink on a regular basis, it's just come in. We just ask you don't come in inebriated. You're not going to get anything out of it. One, none of us get anything, of value if we're totally numb to everything that's going on around us and totally detached. You want to be engaged. I encourage you to be engaged.
Do you have
Sure.
any people that you've served and helped that come top of mind of one of your proudest moments of their recovery?
There was a 14-year-old, and
Wow.
this is just amazing. When we started 22 years ago, this 14-year-old young man, we didn't know any better, but his father, I knew his father, and he was just so sad and burdened because his son was struggling. And
Right.
he brought him on the first night ever, our first meeting,
Ever.
our first 22 years.
Wow.
Well, we didn't know any better, but he was a 14-year-old acting like a 21-year-old, very mature for his age,
Yeah.
very, a lot of street smarts, man, a lot of street
Mhm.
smarts. So we welcomed him in the men's groups and everything else and just loved on him, totally loved on him. And he participated. He kept, he's in alcohol and, everything, everything. So he participated and he just thrived in that environment, but he wasn't. So over a course of, I think, a number of months or a little more than a year or more, it was a couple of years, few years actually. He just wasn't getting any better, wasn't growing, wasn't. So myself and two other men in our church took him after a weekly service, took him into a back office and sat him down and said, "Hey, man, you got to make some changes. You got to
Right.
take it to the next level. This is helpful, but you got to go somewhere inpatient and you got to work on your life.
Yeah.
Because if you don't, you're just going to continue in this cycle. And we can't stand by without saying something because we love you
Mhm.
and we support you and we want to see you succeed. But you're not going to do it here. You've got to go away." And there was a place in Virginia that his father had found, and he wanted him to go to that. He asked if we would talk to him. So we did. And he ended up going. He was there and then he ran away from it
Oh,
one night. He just bolted. But he ended up sitting next to a homeless man on, I think I shared the story in the book actually, sat next to a homeless man on the street. And it was an eye opener for him and a real defining moment.
he
He
saw where
went
this
back,
can go.
he went back to the program. Now, God sends messengers of all kinds.
Mhm.
He just does. So he went back to the program and he finished and completed and did well. He thrived in that. All right. He then went and decided that he was going to go off to college. I think he had to get his GED. I can't remember, but he went off to college, to a Christian college in Florida,
Wow.
and he got his degree. He got his degree in counseling. He became a pastor,
Wow.
and now he's married with kids, and he's been clean and sober for how many years? 15 years.
That's what I
Amazing,
call a fork in the road.
amazing life transformation. Oh,
Yeah.
yeah. I share his story because he was there the first night.
Right.
And he came and spoke at our 20th anniversary, and he's just a wonderful young man. He's just a good guy, and he just is so grateful for people that loved him unconditionally, like we did, and just cared for him, supported him. We're always there for him, and that was the turning point in his life. He took off the mask, he stopped hiding, he started healing, and dealt with the
Wow.
pain and everything that was going on in his life. And now he's thriving. So that with hundreds of other stories that I have had the privilege of being part of.
And as we said earlier, some people, they have no interest in actually helping themselves anyways.
Yes, someone has to want it bad enough where the pain is greater than their fear, where the pain is greater than their inability to take the mask off, where the pain is greater than that barrier, whatever's in their way. When they're ready, they're going to beat it down
Right.
and they're going to do whatever it takes. They're going to surrender. And I love desperation. I really do in a healthy way. We put conditions on our healing.
Yeah, we do.
We put conditions on
Everything.
our careers, our marriages, our relationships, and especially our healing. My qualifier for everybody that I ever talk to is chapter 1.
Yep.
I ask him, is the pain greater than your fear of changing? And
Mhm.
I'll ask him point blank. And I ask the hard question that people probably aren't really used to. And I think I startle people at
I
times,
think it's a great
but
qualifier.
if the tears well up in their eyes
You
and
know
their
they're
voice
ready.
kind of shakes a little bit, and they're like, I'm ready. Oh, am I? The
Mhm.
truth is, you have some issues, some challenges, some struggles, and you need a healing process.
Mhm.
That is the truth. The grace is, I know this environment well, and I know you'll thrive here, but you're going to have to want to do it yourself.
Right.
I just can't do it for you. Nobody can do it for one another.
Well,
So
let me ask you this as one of the last questions to start closing it up. You talk about the need to create a new past. What does that mean? And how is it possible?
it is possible. And you should see the look on people's faces. Every day you have an opportunity to create a new past,
Mm.
right? Every day you have an opportunity to do so. We're a new creation. So on that very day, when you make that decision, like I did 28, 29 years ago, I became brand new. So everything I do from that day forward is creating a new past. Everything I do,
Okay.
I'm being set free from my old one that was a catalyst to get me to a place of surrender and change and coming out of hiding to begin healing. And that day, I started creating a brand new past. And I've had a new past for the last
Mm.
29 years, let's say,
Okay.
with God who's been in my life to help me heal every character defect, shortcoming, pain, hurt, every area of my life. So I'm a new creation in Christ with a brand new past, hope, encouragement, mission, purpose, healing, striving for wholeness. I don't look back on the pit of hell anymore and
Right.
feel grief, sadness, shame, despair. I don't do that.
Mm.
I created a brand new past. So I look back over the last 29 years, man, grace, wholeness, healing, restoration, new life, new purpose, new outlook, new vision. It's all new. That's my new past. And then I tell people in recovery, especially, and this is where the new past can happen in recovery. And that is, if their goal is to get sober, clean, change their life forever, and you start at step one and you've worked through all the principles and you've gotten new relationships and safe people in your life, trusted people in your life. You came out of hiding, you began to heal, things were taken up, and you got sober and you got clean, right? And I tell them, in a year from now, you're going to look back at
Mm.
being clean, sober, new opportunity, new life, and you've created a brand new past in your recovery. So yeah, it can be done. Absolutely.
Mm. That
You
makes
have to
sense
do,
to me.
but you have to deal with the old one first and,
Mm.
and heal
Amen to
and
that.
heal from that one. Deal with it. Admit it's there. Don't run from the pain. Whatever failures, whatever broken relationships, whatever it is, write about it, journal about it, talk about it, heal from it, and don't carry it around like a burden. Start a new one.
Yeah, I feel that. Craig, it's been an absolute pleasure. I feel like I've learned a lot. Maybe I'll go to a church soon.
Just don't argue in the car on the way there. Whatever you
Oh
do.
my yeah, with my Uber driver. I probably still will. Craig, before we go, where can everyone find you?
Website is stophiding.starthealingbook.com. My other website is craigbrown.com. You can reach me there. Also on my Facebook. I'm also on LinkedIn as well, Craig Brown.
And any final last words to leave everyone with today?
Everything you've ever wanted is on the other side of fear.
Amen to that, Craig.
Yep.
Thank you so much. This has been an absolute pleasure. I've learned a lot and I've really enjoyed reading your book.
Good. Well, thank you. I'm glad to hear that. I just pray it's a resource, helps people. That's all.
I know that's the ultimate goal. Well, hey, it's out there now and people can read it and take what they need from it.
Good. Well, thank you for having me.